about to connect. Oh, someone is already in the live chat. That's good. Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, I need to close a bit of windows. That's done. We are ready. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our live webinars. So we are here today or tonight. As you can see, I created some atmosphere here as well because our alumnus, our guest today is connected from Australia, as you could guess from the title and the description. So we are here today with Santi, streaming our webinar number 7, offered by the alumni organization of the association BEST. We are called BEST Alumni Network, as you know. So Santi, you are connecting from Australia. I'm in Europe, but yeah, I recreated the night environment as well for consistency. And so if you are following this live, of course, join the live chat. Someone is already there. Feel free to ask questions or write your comments whenever you want. And then at the end of the presentation by Santi, I will read your comments and your questions. And I think, yeah, that's good. That's it from today. Santi, what do you want to say about yourself before you start your presentation?
No, first of all, thanks a lot, Clelia, for organizing this. I mean, I know you and the rest of the guys and girls at BAN. I think you guys have done an amazing job, and you're taking the time that we don't have, that we don't put into the organization to organize these kind of events and many other things. So I wish I were more involved, that I could have more time invested in BAN, but I'm very confident that you guys are doing an amazing job. So for me, it's really, it's a big honor to be here. I'm very grateful for the invitation and for the ambience to accommodate. It's 9 p.m. here in Australia, in Sydney. So yeah, happy to share my experience and answer all of the questions that you guys may have.
Okay. Ooh.
Should I start?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, when you want.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, Clelia asked me a few months ago to come back to the alumni organization and tell a bit my story about launching a startup from Australia. She first told me if I wanted to talk about what my startup does. And I said, that's super boring. So I better tell how it was to launch a startup in lockdown from Australia and fully remotely. Can you still hear me? Yes, good. Before I begin, if any of you, I have no idea who has joined. So I'm just talking to my screen. It's a bit weird, to be honest. But I will try to get through it. Any of you, please feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions or write something on the chat, and I'll be happy to take it easy, answer your questions, and yeah. So let me get started. So launching a startup in lockdown, fully remotely from Australia. So as always, the titles, they say more than the actual reality. The truth is that I was already working on a startup, and then lockdown happened, like it happened to all of you out there. And of course, we just need to get on with our lives and adjust. So I will be splitting roughly in 3 parts. First one is the lead up to the lockdown and the startup and so on. The second one is actually launching the startup in lockdown. And finally, a few thoughts on the future. This is still going to be in lockdown. What are we doing to prepare for that? How is it going to look like? And I'm very curious to hear your opinion, guys, about this. So, Australia, why? So, for most of you, Australia is a far, far away place where if you were just a bit like me, you were probably thinking that Australia was one of those places in the other end of the world where you would probably do a once in a lifetime road trip that it would look like this. You would rent a van, travel around the country, wake up with your kangaroos, go for a swim, for a surf. Then after that amazing 1 month experience, you would go back home and continue with your life. That was what I had in my head when I thought about Australia, to be honest. I was living in Sweden, in Norrköping, with Paula, my girlfriend, also a bestie from West Zagreb. And she got this amazing opportunity in her company, Swedish company, to transfer here to Australia, to Sydney. And they basically pay for reallocation, visa, and everything. So the first point here is, for us, I got this, what I call the lucky visa. It's actually, if you think about it, I never thought about, I never had any visa problems in Europe. I had the Italian citizenship. So we are very lucky in the European Union that we can move around and relocate without having to think about visas. But Australia was the first time I had to think about, okay, I need a visa to live here. Otherwise, I'm going to become an illegal immigrant and probably someone will kick me out of the country at some point. But anyway, if you want to come to Australia and be an entrepreneur, start your own company here, is not that easy, actually. And so I found out that through sheer luck, that my girlfriend, with the visa of my girlfriend, which is a temporary skill shortage visa, it's a 2-year visa sponsored by her company, I got to be the partner of, I got the partner visa, which means basically I have more freedom and even I would say more rights than my girlfriend. I get to work or not work. I get to sit home and be pretty, or I can start a company or join any company I want. So this was the first thing, the visa. So we arrived to Sydney in March last year. It was as this picture show you. We arrived here. First thing we did, of course, contact all the best alumni around. 2-3 people, really good friends. Laura, among other things, she convinced us to move to where we live in Manly, close to the beach. But anyway, besides those few contacts, the rest of the experience for me, at least, was I was like alone in this big city. And at the time I was working remotely for a company in the US for a startup accelerator. I was doing everything from UX, UI, front-end development, and so on. And so I was around the city. I was new in Sydney, and I wanted to, in a way, enter the local startup ecosystem. And that's when, and this is, by the way, some of the startups from Sydney, Melbourne, and all around here. Probably, I'm very curious to know how many of these companies you people are aware of. Probably Canva is one of the big stories lately. And I knew probably 2 companies before I came here of this. But it's a strong, very vibrant ecosystem, a lot of investment, a lot of companies similar to Sweden, that they are global from day one, and they think about the US from day one. It's a very interesting ecosystem. And so anyway, I wanted to get to know people. How do you create the network? How do you contact? How do you connect with people if you have almost nobody here? So the thing that I did, I went to participate in a startup weekend, which many of you may know. It's a hackathon that goes for a full weekend. I went there with the sole goal of doing networking, of getting to know people, connecting, and so on. And I joined a team, one of the teams, and we ended up winning that competition. We got the first place. And that's how I got to know about Antler, which is the startup accelerator that ended up supporting me. Two of my colleagues here were already accepted to this startup accelerator called Antler. I don't know if any of you is aware of this organization, but what they do, they have taken the concept of the startup accelerator, which is you apply as a startup that already you have an idea, you have a team, you apply, and if you get accepted, you get money, you get acceleration, and so on. They kind of took that idea and revert it, and they accept. The first thing they do is they don't accept startups, but they accept founders. They select between 80 and 100 founders, and during 2 months, they give you a grant, so you can dedicate full time to this experience. You get to meet a lot of these amazing, talented people. You get hands-on mentorship from investors and other entrepreneurs. And at the end of the program, which lasts for the first part of 3 months, if you manage to build a team to start working and validating on a specific problem, and you have traction and so on, then you have a chance to pitch at an investment committee and for pre-seed investment of $100,000. So this was for me the perfect opportunity because I didn't know many people here. This was in very short time get access to a huge network. And the other thing I have to mention about Antler is that Antler is a rather new concept, and it was founded in Singapore by people from the Nordic countries, from Norway, Sweden, and nowadays it's all over the world, from Stockholm, Amsterdam, London, the US. There are about 10, 15. In a way, it's kind of similar to how PES has grown with local groups, and it's a global network with local groups that handle these acceleration programs. So how I got accepted to Antler? Well, it's actually it wasn't that easy, but in short, what I did was, first of all, find an inside supporter. I had 2 friends that were part of my previous startup in this event that were accepted to the first batch. So I was working very close to them, helping them with different things, kind of on a pro bono basis. And by working with them, they got to know me better. And when it came the time for the next application for Antler, I already had their support, and they had no problem to vouch for me. The second one was building the LinkedIn network. This I think this applies to not just startup accelerators, but any job. If you're applying for any job, whenever someone sees your profile for the first time, the first thing they will do is they will open your LinkedIn profile. And after seeing your picture and your title, they will see how many people are connected with you and this person. And if that's at 0 or 1 or 2, your candidacy is not going to be as strong as if you have 20 shared connection, or 30 or 50. So that's what I did. I did a quick hack. I went and started connecting to a lot of people that were connected to the partners of this, of Antler. And the last thing was, during the interviews and so on, they focus on problems. Try to describe whatever problem you want to work on, not on the idea, not on the solution, because the solution at the end of the day will change. But what will make a difference is your deep understanding of the problems. So I got accepted. This was December last year. I was in Argentina visiting my parents, got the big news over there, and I had to fly back in January, like the first week of January, to start with Antler. And my experience there, basically like three big parts. The first one is testing ideas and problems and so on. The second one, they invest in teams. They don't invest in solo founders. So another big thing here is finding the right co-founders. And Antler really gives you every opportunity to, it's kind of like a dating event in a way that lasts for 2 months, in which you are dating other co-founders. You're working on small workshops, you're working on design sprints, you're going for coffee, you're going for lunch, you are during this whole experience, you're getting to know other people. And the easiest, of course, you start with a list of 80 in my case. The easiest is to get rid of the people that you absolutely don't want to work with. But then you have a short list. In my case, there were around 15, 10 people. And sometimes you really like the person, you connect on a personal level, but you may have both of you the same backgrounds. So that's not very good when it comes to founding a startup. Or you may have very complementary skill sets, but you're not passionate about the same problems. So that it's a lot of trial and errors, a lot of ups and downs. It's emotionally, it's very intensive, but it's but totally worth it. So this is how the program looks like very shortly. And you have intros and workshop in the first month, and then you already start working on researching problems and so on. Then you have to start finding a co-founder, and at the end of these 3 months, you have the investment committee, and you get to pitch there if you have a strong team and if you're working on an idea that they think is worth investing in. So my experience was a bit testing so many different ideas. These are just a list of some of the problem spaces, industries that I worked on during these 2 months. Either in some cases it was just a quick design sprint of 4 or 5 hours. In other cases I was working for a full day, 2 days, a full week. And the typical thing is you start working on an idea, and then you get to okay, wrong way, go back, discard this idea and go to the next one. This happened over and over again, and you have to be ready to take this and move on. So anyway, I kind of started working at the end on SaaS, software as a service subscription, on the waste around those. I'm pretty sure that these are not big news for any of you, that even if you think about it on a personal level, you start paying for Netflix, for storage on Google or Dropbox or this kind of thing. And it's very easy to get to start paying for things that you should have canceled long time ago. And it's very easy to create inefficiencies around that. So this is a bit, in summary, some of the trends that I detected when I was researching this problem, that we try new SaaS all the time, especially in companies. Employees nowadays have the power to just sign up for any tool that they need, which is an amazing thing. But at the same time, that creates a lot of waste. We spend more money than ever before. In the last 6 years, the money spent on software as a service has gone from 40,000 on average to almost 500,000 per company. And the other thing is that we churn about 40% of those applications every 2 years. So we cancel and we sign up for new applications over and over again. So you can imagine this creates a lot of waste. And so I was working on this idea. I have been working with another team. And at some point, my 2 co-founders decided to leave because they wanted to work on something else. So this was a bit near the big deadline that I found myself having to find yet another co-founder. So it was around the starting of month 3 when I met my current co-founder, Alex, and I met him. And 1 week later, Sydney went into lockdown, like very strict lockdown. So from that moment on, we started working 5 super intense weeks towards this investment committee, all in lockdown. And this takes me to the second part of this presentation, which is launching in lockdown. So those 5 weeks, some of the few things that we need to adapt to this. It was first, and the most important one, I think, was the daily stand-ups. Every day at 9 in the morning, we'd get on Zoom initially, then we went to Google Meet, and have a stand-up and talk about what we're going to do during the day and so on. We use the lean approach, lean startup methodology approach from the very, very beginning. During those weeks, the only thing we were doing was contacting CFOs, finance people, CTOs, and different managers, CEOs, and so on, of growing companies. We were connecting with them through LinkedIn, asking them for, you have 5 minutes to talk about your problems that you're having with SaaS and so on. We got an immense, really good, very positive response from them. In particular, we got the main thing that we found here was that this was a prevalent problem. Like every company had this problem, and the question that really triggered these people was, whenever we asked them, okay, how many applications are you paying for? And they would say, okay, no, it's maybe 5, maybe 10. No, wait a minute, maybe 15, 20. Well, you know what? I don't know. And that was the best type of client, the one that didn't have no clue about their SaaS. Anyway, by week 3, we started asking ourselves, okay, can we get paid without actually building the product? And so, and again, here it was like, okay, a quick question. And then we just started testing it out with our first clients. And this was a game changer for us because we learned that companies were willing to pay without even having access to a product, without having anything to work on, just pay because of the promise of a solution. And anyway, so this wasn't my first startup. This is actually my third startup. First time here in Australia. And what was different this time around, comparing building a startup in normal situation versus lockdown? And what I learned was that when it comes to talking with clients and doing marketing and doing everything, any kind of business activity, it wasn't that much different from my previous experiences, because most of the contact with clients was either through email or social media or any different ways of electronic means. But where we did have a big difference was internally within the team. And the team building part is so much harder when you're doing it remotely. The other thing that I was missing a lot, and both of us were missing a lot, is that on-site team synergy. When you go to the office, you meet your teammates, and it's just contagious, that energy. And the last thing is that you obviously need a lot more self-discipline. And the daily stand-ups help a lot with this, but still it's one of the things very much needed. Anyway, so we worked very hard during 5 weeks. Now let me tell you quickly what my startup is doing. So I started talking a bit about this problem of scattered and shadow SaaS application. This is how it looks like for your regular company. What we do here first is that we connect Huddle. Huddle is the name of my startup, to your accounting software. Here, Xero is one of the most used, popular ones. And with this, we pull data from all the money that the company is spending on SaaS. And here we create the first initial the SaaS stack. So we bring visibility. We let the CFO and the rest of the team leaders get to know this through a simple dashboard. And the second step is that once we have the SaaS stack, we run a company-wide SaaS review survey. So we email every employee and we let them voice their preferences, the rating, how much they're using, if they have access or not to the different applications. Then we process that information and we identify, roughly speaking, 3 big groups of applications. The ones that are not being used, there are duplicates, there are dormant, and so on. Then as a second group of applications that are needed, they have a very low rating, and the engagement is average or low. And then a big group of applications that have high engagement, employees love using them, and they are critical for the business. So what we do now, the next 2 and last points, is that they go through a simple cleanup. They remove unused and duplicates. They adjust or replace those that are not with low ratings, and they keep and promote those applications that they love. And lastly, and this is probably the most interesting one from a business perspective, is they do the cost optimization. Through us, they access to different partnership, exclusive prices with vendors. We are starting to do vendor negotiation, and we recommend them in many cases to switch from a monthly to an annual billing. So this is in very short terms what Huddle does. And this is what we started building during those 5 weeks that I told you about. And the result was that by week 5, we had 5 paying customers. We had at that point a monthly recurring revenue of $450. And this is a slide from the investment deck that we presented. We had those 5 companies. In total, we analyzed north of $500,000 US of SaaS, and we detected around 12% of savings for these 5 companies. And this was a really good thing in terms of traction and in terms of investment. And we, the last thing, next point, sorry. How's the VC money, venture capitalist funds money during COVID? Well, let me just do this quick parenthesis here. So as you probably are aware, most of you or all of you, the name of the game when COVID hit the global economy was cost reduction. Every company went into cost reduction mode. And of course, most companies were very careful of not reducing, try not to reduce personnel. So of course, software was one of the things that they were trying to reduce the most. And from the perspective of investment, the VC fund, it's the partners of a VC, of a fund, they need to invest. They have taken money from their investors, and that money cannot just sit around waiting to be invested for a year until COVID is gone. They need to allocate that money. And the other thing is that fewer startups are created during this period, and there are fewer attractive startups. So we were one of the lucky ones that were actually targeting a problem that was relevant during COVID. And this was how we got we got through the investment committee, and we got to our pre-seed investment. And that was at the end of April. And this has been the last 5 months, going from more strict to more flexible to on-off lockdown, at least here in Sydney. And at the end of June, we had the demo day, which was a live event. It's available for you if you want to check it out. By then, we already have a functional MVP. At that time, we had 15 customers, paying customers. And then we got to demo day. At that point, we said, okay, we were starting to lose. We lost our first customer. And at that point, we said, okay, let's slow down with sales and work with the 15, 20 clients that we have already. Let's create a lot of value for them in a closed beta. And then once we know that we can really solve this problem and really help them optimize costs, then we can start bringing in new customers. So that's a bit what we've been working on for the last 2 months. Now September is coming. We've had very good traction so far, very good results from the savings that we're creating for the companies. So it's looking pretty well to start with sales and marketing again. And we are raising a second round of seed investment, and we already closed 30% of that. So we're in the process of getting money so that we can have 12 to 18 months of runway without having to worry about investment. So yeah, this is a bit our current situation. And now going to the end of this presentation, future in lockdown. What are we doing to actually, none of us knows what's going to happen with COVID. Most likely it will be something of the history in 2-3 years. But there is also a possibility that this becomes the new norm. And what we are doing about it, and give me a minute. What we're doing is something, I think, rather simple, but we're building resilience for future lockdowns. And this is not just as a buzzword or something like that. We really think that if we build that resilience for any type of lockdowns, we'll be more nimble and agile, not just in the event of a lockdown, but in general. If life goes back to normal, I think we will have a cutting edge if we have built that resilience. And what are we doing for this? In short, 3 things. Building remote first teams. We have one of our developers from Sweden. We're looking for another developer, also remote. And even the rest of the people, we have a team of 5. The rest of the people are here in Sydney, but we try to build all of the collaboration and all of the business processes and so on in a way that we can move to remote at any time. And then what we are doing is combining this remote work with short, very intensive events. And lastly, trying to put a lot of emphasis on building an empowering culture. And I don't know if you see any similarities, but what are remote first teams, if not our beloved best committees? And this remote work intensive events that I think is every internal best event that we've had. Finally, the building empowering culture, inspiring the startup a lot, of course, on the empower diversity from best. Anyway, with this final point, I want to thank all of you, and I'm very happy to have any conversation, answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Santi. Yeah, more people asked their questions and wrote some comments in the live chat. And you still have time to write your questions and comments, so please go ahead. I like this comparison as well with your past experience in the best organization. That's very nice. We had a question related to the Antler hackathon. Did you know the people in your Antler hackathon team before the competition?
No, I did not. So there are two things. One's Antler, this is the startup accelerator, the company builder, and the other thing is the Startup Weekend, which is a hackathon for a weekend. That was the first event that I participated in here in Sydney, and there I didn't know anybody. I just went. It's much like the best event in many ways. You get to know people, get to pitch their ideas. Teams are formed, and you get to join any team that you want, and then you work during 54 hours on that idea.
Okay, yeah, good. Nina also called your, when you do the screening of the SAS, she said SASsessment. That's how you could call it.
SASsessment.
SASsessment.
SASsessment. That's a good one. Yeah, I will write it down.
How did you manage to find the first business clients? We all know this is a very difficult step when you start.
Yeah, it is. It is difficult. And look, having a startup in any kind of industry market, without clients, you have no startup. You only have the delusion in your head of something that could be, but that is not necessarily. But how did we do? I can share later a few documents that I have about this, but I used, in particular for this one, I used a simple LinkedIn automation hack. In short, it's very simple. First, you need to define very well who is your customer or likely to be your customer. In our case, we had a pretty good idea that CFOs and finance controller, finance reviewers were the ones that care about money and they would care about reducing costs. So what we did was we identified the person, the role within these companies. Then we identified which type of companies we wanted to target. And for us, we started thinking, okay, who has the biggest problem when it comes to managing their software? And for startups, that's not really a big issue because the spend is not that high. For very large companies, mid-market or enterprise, there are already solutions out there for them. So what we thought was growing companies that go from 20, 30 employees that are rapidly growing, that receive Series A, Series B investment. They're growing a lot. They have no time for anything. They don't have any, the priorities is not on cost reduction, but on growth. So that's where our hypothesis was that they would have the biggest problem. And so, after doing that, we went to Crunchbase. We exported a startup from Sydney that had received Series A, Series B investment in the last 2 years. From there, we went to LinkedIn, identified the CFOs, the founders of those companies, and then through LinkedIn, we started sending requests for connection with a personalized message. Basically, we were saying, look, we are a small startup from Sydney. We are researching this problem. If you have problems with SaaS management, we would love to have a chat with you. And we run this through a simple an application online that is called Phantom Buster, which basically does this in an automated way. So you don't have to send manually 500 messages. It just does it automatically for you. And you will not believe how many, the great response we got from this. We got probably around 40% conversion rate from this. And from those, maybe 10% were people who were interested, with whom we had a chat. And yeah, and then you go down the funnel. That's how we did it, and how we are still working in that way.
Yeah, that's good. Then I can read some congratulations. Go ahead, Santi. That's good. Great product. The company I work for just recently realized everyone had full access to the database software. So they are just finally amending that now. Very useful product.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So
I'll be very keen to talk.
other questions? How did your previous startup experience help you during this journey? You already highlighted some differences, right, with the previous one, but
Yeah. No, the main, my previous startup was in Argentina after my experience in Europe and Best and university and so on. Look, the thing is, with my first startup, I made all of the classic mistakes that you make when you're building a startup, or most people make. You wait too long to talk to customers. You start building this amazing idea of how the product will be, how the solution is or should be, without necessarily talking to these people first. And I don't know, I learned things like it's very easy to get people excited about a project like this, a startup that can, potentially grow and be a global company. It's very easy to get people on board initially, but you need to very quickly turn that initial enthusiasm that people have, you need to turn that into results, some kind of result. People cannot live on the promise of things working out in the future. So those are a few of the things that really helped me prioritize in this new experience, in this new project, prioritize and it helped me avoid wasting time on things that I shouldn't waste time on. So it helped me say no to a lot of things. It helped me say no to, startup competitions. They're the biggest waste of time for any startup. When I see a startup that won this amazing startup competition award, or that had all of those awards on the webpage, first thing I think is they're not talking to their customers. They're not doing anything for their customers, and the only thing they have to show for are those awards. And believe me, it's really easy to get people excited. It's very easy to win these awards. I mean, not very easy, but you can easily fabricate a story that looks appealing, that people start thinking that that can work, that will change the world, etc., etc. But actually going and talking to customers and learning from them that most of the things that you have in your head, most of the ideas that you have in your head are not necessarily what they are interested in. And then building a product based on that, that's the really hard part. And yeah.
Understood, thank you. Other question here. Do you think that this experience has been possible thanks to special conditions that you found in Australia and that you cannot find here in Europe in startup incubators?
No, I don't think that at all.
Yeah.
No.
Also comparing
I
with
think
your previous startups,
Yeah. Look, I don't have big experience in Europe with startups, but I was living in Stockholm, near Stockholm as well, and I think in Europe it's even easier to, or at least as easy as it is here to start with a startup, to get funding, to find investors and so on. Yeah, for me, COVID helped a bit to my specific industry, the specific problem. But that's the same thing in Europe. I don't see any difference from Europe.
Okay, that's good. Thank you again, Santi. We don't have other questions for now. And yeah, we can close the webinar here. Just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications for our next webinars. And for more events, you can also visit our website, bestalumni.net/events. And yeah, I think that's, oh yeah, we also have a feedback form in the description of this video, so feel free to fill it out if you have any feedback to give us. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again, Santi, for your time today.
May I have a last word?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, this is just a shameless plug for anyone. If you are working in a company that is having any of these problems, that is working with SaaS, that you think this may be an interesting thing, I will be more than happy to talk to you. I'm not trying to sell anything, just we are still learning a lot. We are still working with the local, in the local market here in Australia, but before the end of the year, we are thinking of expanding the US into Europe. So I'm in an exploratory mode at the moment, trying to understand, yeah, if the problems are the same. My guess is that the problems are the same for European companies and US companies. But yeah, and the last thing is we also searching for developers, remote developers. So if you're keen, if you have experience with, especially with React and other front-end or full stack, please get in touch. I'll be more than happy to talk to you and introduce you to the team and see if there's a fit to work together. And lastly, thanks a lot, Clelia. You guys are doing an amazing job, and keep it on.
Yes, stay in touch for next webinars and events. Thank you again, Santi. Thank you everyone for following.